So thank you very much for that. First of all, a nice warm welcome to our Year 8 parents who have joined us this afternoon, and a very nice warm welcome to our faculty who have also joined us. We have the 2 Year 8 advisors as well as our Year 8 subject teachers this afternoon joining us. We are going to move straight into a presentation to begin with this afternoon. During the presentation, please feel free, parents, to put any questions that you have in the chat in this Zoom call, and at the end of the presentation, we will do our very best to try and address your questions. The session this afternoon is recorded. So we will have a recording as well as the presentation available to you tomorrow morning. We will send that out via the WhatsApp group as well as direct email to you. So, so for the parents who have not been able to join us this afternoon, they can at least view the recording and have a look at the presentation. So, what I'm about to do now is I'm going to just share my screen and begin the presentation. So I'm hoping everyone can see my screen there. Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. No, we're all good. Okay, excellent. And let's just see if I can. Great, okay. So this afternoon, we are going to cover a number of topics. We will do some brief intros and then return to the advisory role, and then have a look at virtual school experience, followed by communication tools, course outlines, and assessment schedules. So as we communicated at the beginning of the term to all of our secondary students during the opening assembly for the year, we highlighted the value and importance of the advisor role in our school. We know that a number of parents joined that assembly. I'm not sure how many Year 8 parents joined, but I'll just go over a couple of key points that we mentioned at the beginning of the term. The advisor or advisors at each year level are responsible for the pastoral well-being and care of a small group of students in that particular year level, and the advisors play a supportive role, keeping a track of how the student is progressing academically, as well as a point of contact for parents and the student if there are any issues or concerns that they have. So the advisor is the student's first point of contact if they've got a question or they're needing to find out some information. And the advisor is also the parent's first point of contact. So if you've got questions about a whole range of things related to virtual schooling, then you will reach out to your son or daughter's advisor in the first instance. So we're really trying to create an environment where our young people are supported and guided by a trusted adult who will monitor their progress, will be a person that they can speak to, come to if they've got some issues, even if it's challenges in other subject areas, that the students can go to the advisors in the first instance to seek advice or support. So in Year 8, we have 2 advisors, Laura Said and Ryan McPhee. Both staff members have been at our school for some time, and most of our Year 8 students will be familiar with both staff members and have been taught by both staff members. So Laura and Ryan are your first point of contact parents if you've got some questions or concerns, and please make sure that your son or daughter is really clear that they can reach out to Laura and Ryan at any point to get some support. Our Year 8 students take a range of subjects throughout the year, taught by subject specialists. So there's just on the screen, there's a list of the subject teachers who are teaching Year 8 classes. So all students will take English, mathematics, science, design, technology, music, languages is a bit of a choice, and then art and physical education. So again, parents, if you've got questions related to those subject areas, you can reach out to the advisors in the first instance. And as the year progresses, I'm sure you'll have communication contact with the subject teachers. Just as a reminder, this afternoon, our daily structure changed at the beginning of the year, partly to accommodate virtual schooling, but also looking at slightly longer blocks of learning throughout the day. The key difference, of course, is the short snack and lunch breaks, and then the advisory session at the end of the day. So a couple of points to make there. We have communicated to all of our teachers and students about the short snack and lunch break, and we have received some feedback from some students that they don't have enough time to eat their food or get a drink during that time. So we are asking students that if they do need some additional time, they can eat or drink during classes, so long as they are not distracting others or not impacting on the learning virtually. So that's something for parents to be aware of. And then the advisory session this year, it's a really important session at the end of the day with each advisor. It's an opportunity for advisors to touch base with students each day, check on them, make sure that they're okay. But it's also a time for us to allow our national curriculum teachers, particularly with Islamic studies and Christian studies and Indonesian studies, to reach out and touch base with students from time to time. It's not a designated time where students will do that work, but it is time where they can reach out to their national curriculum teachers. But mostly it's about the advisor touching base with each student on a daily basis to make sure that they are progressing well and that their questions are answered. Being in the virtual school environment, it's really important that we're mindful of student well-being, and this is a way in which we can support students and provide students with a platform where they can ask questions, they can seek advice, and so on. So we wanted to talk briefly this afternoon about the virtual school experience and provide some clarification and some information that will help you as parents and hopefully help the Year 8 students as they progress through this challenging time. And Mrs. Dickinson is going to speak a little bit about the virtual school experience. Thanks, Joanne. Oh, you need your microphone on, Joanne.
Sorry, that would help, wouldn't it? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'd just like to briefly talk to you about what's been going on in the last few weeks in school and a couple of reminders that is going to make virtual school a more pleasurable experience for everyone. So first of all, that your children really need to be ready to start the day and ready to learn. What we are trying to ensure is that the children are still maintaining routines, and that this is, even though they may be studying in their bedroom or their living room, that this is school, and they need to get their head around it and understand that routines and classes need to be followed in the same manner as they would in school. So that needs to be tippled out of bed. They may get a little bit of a lie-in, but certainly to get them out of bed and get them showered and dressed and ready to learn and sitting at their workspace by 11 o'clock. So 11 o'clock, by 8 o'clock. In that workspace, whether it be in the living room or the dining room preferably, or at least in an area where you can just keep an eye on them, or someone is around, just to make sure that they are actually studying in their workspace. It's a designated space only for working, much as, you know, you may have your workspace at home. They also need a workspace, and in that workspace it has their stationery, it has their books that they need, and it has their water bottle, and their other devices are put firmly away, and handphones are out of reach, as they would in the classroom. So speaking of which, for the stationery, I did notice this morning that there are still a few stationery packs downstairs for Year 8 students, parents to collect. So if you could arrange to get those stationery packs, that would be fantastic, because they are very, very helpful for the students at home. On thinking about the internet speed, if you have, as workers or whatever your role is within your family, I'm sure you check your emails, you would check little Instagram bits and pieces, or WhatsApp, or whatever happens during your day. If you might be sending presentations to your work colleagues, or whatever you use your device for, your kids are using their device to learn. And this means that they may have, they've got a camera on, they've got a microphone on, they've got multiple maybe applications running at the same time, and that requires bandwidth. And we have noticed in the last couple of weeks, no fault of your own, is that some of the kids' connectivity is not great. So they're dipping in and out of classes because they just don't have enough power, so to speak. So if you could speak to your kids, is everything going okay? Because like I said, for adults, ours is not as technical as what they need the device for. So just ask, is everything going all right? And you might have to upgrade your routers or your bandwidth. That's more cash for First Media or whoever you're using at the moment. Also on the same, talking about devices, remember too that it is a laptop that the kids should be using. Definitely not an iPad or a phone or any other device such as a tablet. We have a bring your own device policy at the school, which stipulates that the kids need to have a laptop, please. Checking emails, Teams chat, ManageBack. We would encourage students are checking their emails at least twice a day. Teams, they need to be checking them constantly. I mean, goodness, they will probably check in their Instagram constantly. So on the weekends and evenings, hopefully. So during the day, they need to be checking Teams, making sure that messages are being followed up and that they're abreast of what's going on in the class. Also for ManageBack, that they need to be checking that at least once a day. All the students have access. We've checked with them one by one. They can get in. Now it's a case of just encouraging them. It could just be a sticky note on the fridge that says, have you checked your email this morning? Did you check ManageBack last night? Just to remind them to get into the habit of using the platforms as they should be used as learning tools. And finally is about if a teacher emails a student or sends a message on Teams that the children are responding. and in a courteous and responsive manner. So if the teacher sends a message that the student gets back to them at least that day or the next morning, whenever is appropriate, depending on the urgency of the message, because we're tending to find that some students are not responding. When we're in school face to face, it's easy for me to run out into the corridor and say, hey, I need to talk to you. But now I'm doing it virtually. I have to send a message. I need to talk to you. And if they don't get back to me, you know, within 2 days, I don't need, you know, that urgency of I need to talk to you was kind of past. So please encourage your kids to respond to our communication. And we remind them all the time, but it'd be great if you could support us with that too. I think, have I covered everything, Mr. Hutchinson?
I think you've done a very nice job, Joanne. Thank you very much for that.
That's
great. So we'll move on. So really following the theme of communication, which is a real focus for us this year as a school, we just want to draw your attention to some communication tools and platforms that we use in the school. So ManageBack is something that most of our Year 8 parents who have been with us previously will be familiar with ManageBack. Office 365 is there really to mention that that is a platform where students have access to the full suite of apps, but it's also a platform that allows for teachers and students to collaborate and work together. Parents will have their own private Office 365 account, but they won't be able to go in and look at Teams in our environment. That's the student who will be able to log in to do that. And then, of course, we have email and our school website, which we continue to add resources for our parents under the Parent Essentials tab in our website. So for those of you who are not familiar to ManageBack or haven't been able to access ManageBack, it's really important as a parent that you do that. As a parent, you should have received an email invitation to log into ManageBack. If you haven't received an email invitation from ManageBack at this point, please contact Miss Mia at our reception area, and we will sort that out for you. But the email that you have provided the school at the time of admissions is the email that we communicate through direct email to you, but it's also the email address that you use for your ManageBack access. So for those of you who are very busy and on the go all the time, like many parents are, the ManageBack app is a really useful tool for you as a parent, and you can search for that ManageBack app through Android or iOS, and it's a pretty simple process of just logging in with your email address, and then you're ready to go. So as parents, we really recommend that you have access to ManageBack, that you use that tool as much as you can. In the next little while, we will be promoting a ManageBack workshop for parents, but we'll get some details out to you about that. But for now, it's making sure that you have access to ManageBack. And there are a couple of things that we just want to draw your attention to with ManageBack. And the first one, of course, is knowing how to communicate and contact our teachers. So one way to contact a subject teacher at ACG School Jakarta is go into ManageBack, go into the subject, and the subject teacher's name and email address is there. This is a really simple way. All of your child's subject teachers will be listed, including their advisor. Remembering the simple email pattern for all ACG School Jakarta staff is first name dot last name at acg.edu, and the other way in which you can find a list of staff and email addresses is going to our website and going to our handbook section, where there is a parent and student handbook, and there's a full list of staff there where you can see their role title as well as their email address. So a couple of ways in which you can reach out to teachers at our school to communicate via email. So just to clarify again with the platforms that you'll probably talk to your son or daughter about, as Joanne mentioned, Microsoft Teams is a collaborative platform. It's really designed to provide students with an opportunity to chat, to video conference. So that's student to student or student to teacher. It's an opportunity for teachers to provide resources and information to help them with their learning. OneDrive is a storage area for all students, so they don't need to create a Google account and have a Google Drive. They can put all of their assignments and their resources into the OneDrive, and it's a really convenient way of being able to share documents, work collaboratively with others to develop documents and so on. And then finally, email. So we are encouraging our students to use email. We know that it's probably not their first choice in communication, but we are encouraging them to use email to email teachers, and we are working with them to develop the skills and the appropriate ways in which they can actually email subject teachers. In ManageBac, there are also a couple of really important documents that you may be interested in, and certainly for students, it's important that they read through these documents that are prepared by our subject teachers. So the first one that we want to draw your attention to is the course outlines. So course outlines will provide information about the course of study that the students are embarking on. It will provide information about the topics and the units that are being covered, as well as assessment information. So the course outline document is a really useful document for you as a parent, but also for the students. So in ManageBac, clicking on the Files tab in the particular subject, and then looking for the course outline document in a PDF format will allow you to access those documents easily. Similarly, with the assessment schedule is another important document that really, these documents are connected, and they are in ManageBac for a reason, because ManageBac is our primary reporting and assessment platform. So it's where parents and students and teachers go to share information about how students are progressing, and provide information about both formative and summative assessments, as well as course information that may be relevant to assessment. And we'll talk a little bit more about formative and summative assessment in a moment. But the assessment schedule can be accessed in the same way that the course outline can be accessed via ManageBac. So following the theme of assessment this afternoon, Richard Todd, our Vice Principal, will just guide us through a couple of slides that relate to our focus on assessment this year and over the next few years.
Thank you, Sean. Nice to be with you, everybody. Yeah, so very much in line, in keeping with our focus on communication, formative feedback and assessment from teacher to student, and hopefully student to parent. Formative assessment and feedback is what keeps the student informed about how they can get better at all of the different things that we're learning how to do in school. Having a look at this little diagram in front of you, you see the circle on the left, what is known. That's if you keep your child, or if we keep a student in this area doing what they can do all of the time, it's very safe, very stagnant. You don't get anywhere, you make no progress whatsoever. Over to the right, what is not known, if they don't have any hope of achieving a task or learning some content knowledge because it's just too high level or too complex, then there's no point in running activities like that, because the kid's just going to get confused and switched off. Where you need to be is somewhere in the middle here, where a child can attempt something with some kind of scaffolding, some kind of support, coaching, if you like. And this is called the zone of proximal development. It's a great mouthful, that is, and it is a theory of a Russian educational psychologist with the fantastic name of Lev Vygotsky, one of my favorite names. Next slide, please, Mr. Hutchinson. Okay, so formative assessment. The key about what this is it's in the first 4 letters of the first word, form. When something is forming, it is growing, it's getting its shape, it's becoming what it is going to be eventually. The formative assessment and formative feedback, the purpose of them is that they aid learning. They actually help actively, they help learning. It's designed to improve performance, it's very specific. Any feedback tasks, assessment tasks that are formative in nature, they're always connected to the overall or overarching unit or the topic that's being studied at the time. Feedback is given to students either immediately on the task during the child trying to achieve the activity or gain the process knowledge. Or very soon after. It's very important that there's no real big long gaps in between the activity and the feedback. It can be verbal, written, demonstration, video. It can be on any platform, really. The point is that the student is receiving feedback that is unique to them, and they're getting it quickly, and they can use it to improve. Next slide, please. It's not the following things. So it's not high stakes, it's not graded, it's not general or standalone or random, hidden, generic. So all of these things where you could apply, I don't know, a general knowledge quiz to the same group of kids, that's not formative assessment. That's a general knowledge quiz that doesn't really help you in any particular way. Next slide, please. Summative assessment, the key again is in the first 3 letters this time, sum, that means total. So when we've finished a unit or we've finished a topic, an area of study, we make a final evaluation of what the child can do or what they know. So it's an assessment of learning. And you see the difference between formative, that is for learning, it helps learning, actual real time. Summative assessments happen at the end. They're final, they are high stakes, they appear as judgments on reports or examinations and certificates. Next, please. Again, important things to understand about summative assessments, they're not changeable and they're not useful in a formative sense about learning how to get better at a skill, because they're the end point. And now we'll just talk about how they're both useful in different ways on the next slide, please. Okay, so formative assessment, this is essentially what schools are all about. It's what should be happening in most of the lessons, most of the activities that are supposed to be helping kids gain knowledge, gain experience, gain expertise. They are aided and pushed forward, the students I'm talking about, by information that is formative in nature, that helps them get better at what they do. This is what schools do. Summative assessments, even though we do use them, this is more the business of examination boards. We do use them again because we have to evaluate so that we can give a final picture of how well students have achieved, full stop, over a period of time. But our primary raison d'etre, the reason we exist, is to help improvement on an ongoing basis. So both very useful, but in very different ways. Kids teaching kids is one of the best forms of formative assessment and feedback, is kids helping other kids. I've got an example for you. It's not a year 8 example. It's a year 13 and year 12 example. One of my students in year 13 who was doing the extended essay, came up with a really good idea for how to map out her extended essay. And she built certain sections and she guesstimated the number of words in each section so that she could work out how much time it would take and how much time she should spend on those sections. And I shared that with the year 12s, and they're very grateful for that little bit of expertise. That's actually a student inadvertently helping another student by showing them how to do something that's at a little bit higher level than they can do it now. And that is my little speech finished.
Thank you very much, Richard, for that. So at this point in the afternoon, what we're going to do, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to move to responding to questions from parents. And if you can, as I stop this sharing, you can just put your question or questions in the chat and we will do our best to address those questions. So, right. So I'm just going to see if I can see a few more people. Lovely to see all of your beautiful faces, everyone. That's great. So the first one, how necessary is it for the children to have mobile phones handy to take photos? Can they do without the phones to avoid distractions? So we're specifically talking about year 8. Joanne, I know that you have a very strong view on this, so I might pass over to you first.
I do, and the phones should be nowhere near the workspace. Having said that, when we play Kahoot, which is probably once every 2 weeks, we will ask the students to go and grab their phones. So I'll say, we're playing Kahoot, go and get your phones. And they mostly run away, but some of them just reach over and take the phone. So in my class, phones nowhere near. However, Miss Pickering, you do require the kids to take photos of their work, don't you? Where's Miss Pickering?
Miss Pickering's not on this call. So
right,
Richard,
okay.
Would you like to add to those comments?
Yeah, but I know that Joanne's right, that definitely, Miss Pickering definitely asks people to submit evidence of workings and stuff like that. Definitely in an art room, and I dare say Mr. Ellison is going to say in the design tech lab sometimes as well. If a teacher wants you to be using a phone to take images that you will be using in your work, normally though that you'd know in advance because the lessons are planned and it's part of the equipment that they've told you about. That yeah, you're going to need your phone for this one.
Sorry, could I just add on to that one?
Sure, Mark.
Aye, the use of phones, I don't, as a rule, usually allow that to happen. If we're going to take photographs, we take them using iPads that's applied here, but as a rule, we don't really allow phones unless we have an activity that specifically requests them, because I have found in my experience they can be a distraction. So, sorry, Richard.
Oh no, it's perfectly fine.
And Jack and Abraham, do you have any comments there? Actually, not Abraham. So just Jack, do you require students to take photos? You need your mic on. Let me see if I can get your...
Okay.
That's it.
Can you hear me?
You're on.
Okay. Yeah, so actually the same as Ms. Pickering. And it's not needed the whole block or whatever, but often at the end of the block, they do have to submit some work. Some students can use the camera on their computer, but generally the phone is a little bit easier and takes an easier photo. But that's actually often it's not something that needs to be done right away. So it could really be done like right at the end of class. Like you could put the phone in the room, and then at the end of class, they could grab the phone and take a photo. So there's definitely some flexibility, and that's all it's used for. So it's just the capability of taking a photo of the work and sending it. But other than that, it's not necessary.
Great. Thanks very much for that, Jack. So there is a question, and I did touch on it earlier, but it's a good question to clarify, I think, for parents who are concerned. So is it true that students are not allowed to drink or have small snacks during class? Joanne, would you like to have a go at this one as well?
Yeah, sure. From the beginning of the academic year, as we would in any classroom, the students are allowed to drink, so they can bring their water bottles in and are actually encouraged to drink throughout the day. Now, as Mr. Hutchinson mentioned earlier, we adjusted the break times and the lunch times slightly this year, but it has had quite an impact on the students, and many have said it's quite challenging there's not really enough time for them to get their snacks and their lunch within the time given. So we have allowed the students starting this week to have a little bit of a snack or to have their lunch during class, as long as it's not disturbing their learning, that they're not ramming food down and not listening, and that they're eating. They can eat, but just discreetly, I think, is the answer to that.
Nice way to put it, Joanne. Yeah, I think I know when we communicated to the staff, we probably don't want to see students missing class time to cook up a 3-course meal for lunch. So so long as there's some a sensible approach, and we are mindful that the time is shorter. I think our routines have been impacted. So generally on a regular school day, you'd get up and the kids would either pack their lunches or they'd have other people pack their lunches, and they'd bring that to school and off they go. But what we're finding is that students are kind of thinking about lunch kind of just on lunchtime, and by the time they prepare the food and then eat it, they're kind of into the next class. So there is some understanding from the faculty, parents. We're not going to allow your children to starve throughout the day. So please, they can either finish their lunch if they don't have time, or have a snack and a drink throughout the lessons. So long as they're respectful, so long as they are available during that lesson time to speak to the teachers, then that's fine. So another comment there about the break times, and we have, we've looked at that, and we will continue to look at the break times, especially thinking about a possible return to school for students, and we will have to look at that. So there has been another comment there about the short break times, and I think one of the things is really thinking about how do students get some real downtime so that they can actually have a break from the screens, a break from thinking about their schoolwork and so on. Otherwise, it becomes a very demanding full day for them. There's a question about uniform, school uniform policy during homeschooling. Joanne?
We have decided, I know that some other schools are asking the students to wear school uniforms during virtual learning, and we considered that as well. However, considering the fact that we have quite a few new students this year joining the secondary school, and some of them may have not even been on the school campus, let alone have a school uniform. And some students are still overseas, so they certainly wouldn't have a school uniform. So in order to be inclusive for everybody, we made the decision that it's as well at this time that the students don't need to wear their school uniforms. However, some kids are, and that's fine.
But we do expect children to be dressed, and we do expect them to be appropriately dressed and ready for the day.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. So I'm just looking through. I think we've covered everything so far. Parents, if you do have more questions, please fire away. But I suspect that if there are no questions coming through, then it means that you're all okay and your kids are enjoying their virtual school experience, and we're almost ready to wind it up. But I know that some people take some time to think about the question. So I do want to go back to Joanne's comments about resources and resource packs and the physical books. I think the Year 8 group, Joanne, they did receive a class novel in their resource pack. So if you haven't collected your resource pack for your child, then they're not going to have that class novel to study. So on top of that, we are just at the moment looking at ways in which we can get students on campus, particularly to access our library so that they can access physical books. We do have students who access our Wheelers, ACG Wheelers ebook environment and library, so they can borrow an ebook, fiction or non-fiction. But we also know that some students are looking for that to get off the screen and to get into a real book where they can spend some time reading. So we will be getting some information out about that to get students on campus, as well as looking at some swimming opportunities and so on. So the next question, it's the question that we all dread. Will there be a plan to go back to school sometime soon? Before the school year started, we released our school reopening contingency plan. So that document is available on our website. We can send that out to you again. That contingency plan is very much about school reopening officially. So the government giving us the green light to reopen the school, and where a range of health and safety protocols and measures are in place for students to come back onto campus, where we will move to a hybrid model of delivery, which means that we will have students physically in the classroom, but we will also have some students still at home accessing virtual schooling. We have not got an indication from the government yet about a timeline or dates. I know it's frustrating, but what we are looking at the moment, as I said earlier, is ways in which we can get small groups of students onto campus, mostly for purposes other than classes. So we're looking at some opportunities for students, particularly the Year 8 students. We know there are students in Year 8 that haven't actually physically met each other. They may have met each other online, but they actually haven't physically met each other. So we want to try and provide some social opportunities there, as well as opportunities to access the library and access some specialised resources, particularly for art, particularly for design technology, particularly for sciences. So we are formulating that plan. It is taking a long time. We apologise for that, but we are working on it. So I think the questions have certainly dried up, and certainly there is a a real thumbs up for some social opportunities for our young people. So we have spoken a lot about that, particularly as an academic leadership team. And I know Mr. McPhee, he has already very eagerly put his proposal forward to get our swimmers and athletes back doing some things. But we are doing our best. So Ryan and David have got some plans there. But really, it's a very cautious approach at the moment, given the situation in Jakarta. So we are being fairly careful about that, but we will get some information out to you very, very soon. With that being said, I'm not going to drag this on any longer. I know that most of our parents have probably been online most of the day. I know our staff have been online as well. So we thank our Year 8 parents very much for attending this afternoon. As I said earlier, a video and the presentation will be made available coming out to you tomorrow morning. If you do have any questions, any concerns, reach out to Laura or Ryan in the first instance, and they will support you and your son, daughter through the process. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon. I'm going to wind up. I can't believe that I'm winding up 13 minutes early, but that's fantastic. Enjoy the evening, and we'll see you all online very, very soon. Thank you, parents and staff. Cheers.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.